So I'm looking this human being in the eyes. All I see is fear. All I see is this little boy that didn't get the love that he needed. And he's trying to fill that void inside him, this empty space, with audience, with money, with women. I felt so much compassion for him.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, a free safe space for people to share and learn from others' experiences with mental health and addictions. I'm your host, Todd Runnebaum, suicide attempt survivor and a recovering substance abuser. Well, got another really great show here. This is part 2 with Scarlett Lewis. In part 1, she talked about her son, Jess, who was murdered in his grade 1 classroom at Sandy Hook Elementary School. And we discussed her movement she created called Choose Love Movement. We're going to keep talking about that a bit in this one, and also talk about when she had to testify against Alex Jones and what she thinks of him and all that stuff. So yeah, it's another really great episode. It's not quite as heavy as the first part was, but she's just so incredibly inspirational and so wise. So it's just another really, really great episode. And if you're just sitting there listening, please go ahead and go into the show notes of the episode. There are links in there to buy some merch from the podcast here. There's also you can buy me a coffee link, which would be amazing. I mean, it's not really a coffee. I mean, it's basically a Patreon thing. Even $5 a month or once in a while, it goes a long, long way. So it's so very, very much appreciated. Everyone that's been buying coffees. This podcast wouldn't be here unless people were helping me out that way. So it's very, very, very much appreciated. And you can also watch this episode on YouTube, the Bunny Hugs and Mental Health channel, which I suggest you go check out once in a while, even if you're not a video kind of person. But anyway, let's get to the show. So without further ado, I give you part 2 of Scarlett Lewis.
I tell parents, call your school, and see what hardening measures they have. You're thinking about it. Your kids are thinking about it, and you guys aren't having the conversation because you think it's too difficult, and you're hoping beyond hope that they don't.
I'm sure the
think
schools
about it.
think. Yeah, I'm sure the school's thinking about it. Even.
The school's thinking about it, and so you call and you go, and this is what you say. You go, I want to know how you're addressing not just the attack end, but the grievance end. I want to know if you have a comprehensive program that helps kids cope with pain in their life. And they're going to go, oh yeah, of course we do. It's anti-bullying. We do substance abuse awareness programs. It's like those programs have almost zero effectiveness in schools. I mean, look at what's happening in our world. Not only that, but it used to actually show the effectiveness. If you look them up on the internet, it's probably not there anymore, but it was zero. And so, no, I'm not talking about programs that focus on the problem. I'm focusing on programming that focuses on the root cause of what then later becomes the problem. And if the schools can't give you a comprehensive program that's in their school, that's embraced, that's taught all the time as a way of life, then introduce them to the Choose Love movement, because we do. And do it in front of your kids. Have them see and hear you caring, because they don't know that you're thinking about it. And by the way, in America, kids are losing confidence that we can keep them safe. And I actually spoke with a group in Canada, and they said it's happening in Canada too. Kids are more often bringing guns to school to protect themselves, and weapons and things like that. So because nobody's talking about it, and people are just like angry, and thinking about the gun. Hey, how about think about the grievance end? And show your kids that you're thinking about it too, and make sure that your school's doing everything that's possible and available. And then you've done your job as a parent, and then you can let it go.
It sounds so simple and hippy dippy, man. You're just telling people to choose love, and that's going to change things. Like that's way too easy. We have to do something
Ooh, is it
different.
easy though? It's not easy to thoughtfully respond with love. Hey, if I just
Isn't that the
offended
truth?
you right now, if I just said something that you didn't like, your brain would try to protect you. Your face would get red, your hackles would come up, your brain would figuratively be like this, and you would want to react, right?
Man,
And you would have to have some skills and tools to pull out. You'd have to pause. You'd have to be like, oh my gosh, this woman, she has the choose love movement. Why would she say something like that? And then thoughtfully respond with love, right? And understanding, because hurt people. And you know that. And so you might say, wow, I'm surprised you said something like that. What happened this morning? And I'd be like, oh, my dog died. And you would say, oh man, I'm so sorry. Gosh, what was your dog's name? And then I would feel better. And we would de-escalate the situation. This is part of the stuff that we teach kids, because there's no such thing as a bully. Mm-hmm. There is such thing as bullying behavior. But we have to think about, why is that person behaving that way? There is a reason. And it comes from a point of pain, because anybody that's happy and well-adjusted is going to show up with a smile on their face. That part is simple, but teaching kids, and by the way, big kids, because we're modeling this stuff for our kids. We have to teach our kids to hate. Mm-hmm. They're not born that way. We teach them. So
the hardest part's actually deprogramming the big kids than it is actually programming the kids.
That's very true. Kids embrace love. It's so funny, when I first came out with this name, the choose love in schools. People were like, ooh, love?
Ew.
Can you change that name? I mean, don't you think that's going to make people uncomfortable? Like,
no, people said that?
Oh, absolutely. And
they didn't like the word love?
It came from the craziest of places that you would never expect. And yeah, I had so much resistance to the word love. And I'm like, no, you know what? I think love needs to come back into schools. I mean, it's there. And my educators are the most loving people I've ever known. It's there. The educator's definition is love. That's in their job description. But I wanted to enhance it. I wanted to get Jesse's message of nurturing, healing love into schools in a bigger way, reminding each other of the fact that it's a choice and it's available to all of us, especially the kids.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah. And big kids are the problem. Us adults. And by the way, I will say, when I started looking into all of this and learning about it and developing these programs with experts, I realized very quickly that at 44 years old, that's how old I was when Jesse was murdered, I didn't have the majority of these skills.
Right.
And so, because I wasn't taught by my parents, I wasn't taught in school, and I've worked my whole life, I wasn't taught at work. So I got to be an adult, and people say, oh, well, it's not about love, that lack of love that kids do these shootings. Well, I loved my kids, but I couldn't give them what I didn't have. And I wasn't modeling for them either. So sometimes you got to think, sometimes when kids are in school, and the argument against what I'm saying is, teaching social and emotional competence and character education and positive psychology. The argument against this is that, like, parents should be teaching this at home. Schools are meant for academics. However, some parents aren't teaching it at home. And, and some parents aren't capable of even giving their kids love. So sometimes school is the safest place for kids, is the place where they're learning all of this. And by the way, we all want those kids to be learning this, even if they're not our own. We want to promote, especially those kids, to be learning how to choose love as a thoughtful response.
Couldn't agree more. It is. It's like getting sober. It's so simple, but it's so hard to do.
It's hard. It is hard. And I struggle with it today. I mean, we have a formula that we teach, and that formula is courage plus gratitude plus forgiveness plus compassion and action. And,
Sounds like the 12 steps, actually.
they are. Oh, are they?
Well, kind of like
Yeah.
that's
I'm
kind of
sure
what the
they
12
are.
steps are. And the 12th step is actually being a sponsor to someone else, because it's not only healing to them, but healing to you.
Right. Helping somebody else from what you've learned from your pain. And that is the reason for our existence on earth. And we can, and kids get this. And, and even it's funny because I had so much resistance to forgiveness. I've had resistance from day one to my idea
Step
of
9.
forgiveness. But, sorry.
I said step 9, making amends.
Okay. Yeah. And making amends. Yeah. And forgiving others, forgiving yourself. Really important. And by the way, people said, you can't put that in a program for kids. Forgiveness is really difficult. They're not going to be able to handle that. It's way too, they said, lofty a subject. Somebody said to me, I'll never forget that. And the thing is, it's so interesting because there was a lot of resistance to forgiveness because people don't know what it is. They don't understand it. They think it's a gift that you give the other person who doesn't deserve it, who hurt you, when in reality, the gift is for yourself. I didn't understand it fully when, I made the choice. I did make the choice early on. Like, I was the only person to say there were 28 victims. If you look in all the news articles, it says 26 because they don't count Adam's mom. And before Adam left home that day, he was living in Newtown with his mother. Before he left home, he shot his mother 4 times in the face. And then he went on to perpetrate the crime. But nobody considers his mom a victim because they blame her. She's the one that gave him the guns. She did a terrible job. But, I felt compassion for her because, she made terrible mistakes. But she paid for them with 4 shots to the face. And by the way, I was a single mom too. And I struggled through the school system to get my children help, and ultimately had to go do it myself and through outside services that were very expensive. And so I knew what she went through trying to get her son services that he was denied through the Sandy Hook school system. So I understood that she was doing the best that she could with the skills and tools she had, which we all are, which I was too. And I had made mistakes. So I felt compassion for her. And even Adam, Adam, I knew that he was in pain. I mean, obviously, my God, somebody that comes back to their school and shoots it up, and then I have to say this, the school safety expert that was in there, pompous guy, can't remember his name, don't want to remember it, Argyle socks. But I do remember that he said, after his extensive research, he's the school safety expert in the world or whatever, he said, Adam came back to Sandy Hook Elementary School because it was the last place that he was happy. So many things to unpack in that because parents got up and walked out. But I mean, if that's the kind of thinking behind the people that are trying to keep our schools safe, that's why parents listening, give a call to your school. Be involved. Yeah. Be involved in that process.
Yeah. One last thing about forgiveness. I just wanted to add. I'm not a big pusher of 12 steps. I haven't been to a meeting in years, but the one thing I did learn about forgiveness is, so step 9 is to make amends. So by humbling yourself so much that you're asking for forgiveness, that is how you learn to forgive others, because you know how humbled they are to actually approach you and ask for forgiveness. So a good way to learn how to forgive people is actually asking for forgiveness.
That's interesting.
What I've learned from
That's really interesting. Yeah.
For me, anyway. I mean, I'm not saying I'm no expert.
So I'm always learning, right? And that's an interesting concept. For me, forgiveness meant freedom. That I wouldn't allow the shooter to have control of my thoughts, that determine how I feel, that then in turn is responsible for how I act and show up in my relationships. It was like, oh no, he's not, renting any space in my head. And
So
plus the fact
you forgave him out of spite.
it was for me. It was not for him. It was for me because I wasn't going to allow him to have any impact on my life. And I thought, you know what? We had joy, awe, and wonder prevalent in our life before. I'm getting back to that. But the only way that I can do that is through forgiveness. I actually had a woman that came in really early on when I was still in just total shock, a few days in, and she had lost a son to violence 20 years ago. And like, she came in and she really helped me because, I mean, you're in so much pain, you don't know if you're going to live. And I don't mean die by suicide. I mean, like if you're just going to dissolve in pain. And so she helped me in knowing that, okay, here's a woman, her son was gunned down and she's alive 20 years later. So I'm going to live. But the life that she laid out before me was filled with anger and resentment. And she carried that with her. And I thought, okay, so nobody can give me a roadmap to where I want to go. I want joy, awe, and wonder in my life. And so I have to create it. And actually it was kind of exciting. Because I'm like, wow, I'm sitting here, but my future can look however I choose. And so I choose
it's
love.
A conscious decision.
That's right. It's a decision. It's a decision.
Yeah. Have you, so you're learning all this over the years since the shooting, and then this stupid, what's his name? Is it Alex Jones? Is that his name? Mm-hmm. All this shit comes up that it was all fake.
Oh, it
and
wasn't
they
years
were all
later.
actors.
He was on his show that day on December 14th.
Was it? Okay. I guess the lawsuit was years later, or the decision was years later. Have you forgiven him and the people that rally behind him? Do you consider him?
Absolutely. Yeah? Yes, of course. First of all, a lot of
his Do you think they're in pain?
Well, they're in fear.
Right.
Right. And anger is a mask for pain and denial. And so it's interesting and I found this out, that his earlier followers and still are moms with young kids. So I completely, I know I did the same thing, Todd, but I completely understand it now, because it's like, okay, Todd, you have young kids. I'm going to offer you two alternatives. Okay. One is that a former student goes in, perpetrates this horrific crime. 20 first graders die, 6 educators. Here's the other reality. Okay. It never happened. Right. Yeah, and actually, if you have any anger in you, I'm going to give you a target for it, because these people that are claiming it did, they are actors hired by the federal government to take away your guns. Don't worry that, that woman, Scarlett Lewis, never talked about guns and, just, this is the easier reality. Right. And so if you're like, if you're
now, I challenge you, is it an easier reality?
Good point. Really good point. Well, thank you for throwing it right back at me, because if you don't embrace the truth, then you can't be part of the solution. So the fact of the matter is, so you're telling me that Sandy Hook didn't happen, but the rest of the school shootings did? Or did Sandy Hook not happen and nobody's shooting each other in schools? So you have a lot of people that are agreeing, to I don't know, say lies. It's really, and I get it though. I get it. And, I had to find empathy for the people that were thinking this. Can you imagine, Todd, going through life, not being able to accept reality and the truth?
I've been there.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard. You're right. It is a harder way to live life. Except, I think about my son who goes, Mom, I wish that we just didn't see the truth everywhere and we could just be like some people that are, just kind of walking around like zombies. And I'm like, sorry, we are truth seekers. That's who we are. And it's a better way, because we can not only thoughtfully respond with love, but we can be part of the solution. We can make the world a better place by doing that. So, and I felt, I felt compassion for Alex too, because I knew somebody that got on and told lies about us without considering the pain and the fear that he was causing. Just absolutely no empathy whatsoever, for us, and no social awareness. That's a social and emotional learning competence, driven by money. So that drive for money is also fear. And, having people follow you because, you're telling a lie. It's a terrible place to be. And by the way, when I got on the stand, I had gotten on the stand to give my testimony, and he wasn't there. He wasn't there for a lot of our trial in Austin. He was on his show. So Jesse's dad got up and he spoke to an empty seat because Alex wasn't there. And I got up and I was speaking to an empty seat. I was so nervous. And by the way, I'm a public speaker. I'm never nervous. I was so nervous. And my hand was shaking. I couldn't come up with words. And the judge even said, all right, let's take a break. So that break, I think his attorney called him and said, hey, she's done. So you can come back into the courtroom now. Because he did. So when I came back from my break.
So he was in the building. He just wasn't in the room?
I guess. Well, he also.
What a fucking.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where he was. But he was. When I came back from the break, and it wasn't that long, I sat in my chair and there's Alex in front of me. So I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't necessarily like Jesse's dad is like, I want to face him. And I was never like that, facing your bully face to face, like the ultimate bully. Actually, Adam Lanz is the ultimate bully, but Alex Jones did a good job too. And so I'm looking at him.
There's no bullies, just bully behavior.
Thank you. Oh, you're good. Keep me in line, please. Cause I believe that with my whole heart. So I'm looking this human being in the eyes who has exhibited bullying behavior towards me. And all I see is fear. All I see is this little boy that didn't get the love that he needed. And he's trying to get it now. He's trying to fill that void inside him, this empty space, with audience, with money, with women. And there was nobody supporting him in the courtroom. And I felt so much compassion for him. And all of a sudden, and actually I learned through this too, because yes, I had forgiven. His attorney actually stood up at one point and said, I'm looking at a headline from your alma mater, Boston University, and it says, Sandy Hook victim's mom forgives Alex Jones. So I'm curious. He said something like, if you've forgiven him, why are we even here? And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked that question because we teach forgiveness. And I didn't know about forgiveness, but forgiveness isn't not holding somebody accountable. It doesn't mean that you don't hold the person accountable. It doesn't mean that you forget. It simply means that you cut the cord that attaches you to pain. You take your freedom back. But and people have argued with me, no, forgiveness is just letting it go. It means that you don't hold people accountable, and you shouldn't have done that with Alex Jones. And I'm like, wait a minute. What about rape? If a woman's raped and she doesn't hold her rapist accountable, then he's free to go out and do that again. And so, especially in a case like Alex Jones, where he continued and wasn't repentant. And so if somebody isn't repentant, then you've got to hold them accountable so they don't do that to somebody else. And not only that, I wanted to send a message to the rest of the media. I wanted to say, if you lie to somebody else's detriment, you're going to pay. You're going to be held accountable. And I think, in the documentary, it's my voice that's saying, I want to bring in an era of truth. And I do, because truth is so closely associated with love. You can't really have love without truth. And so we need to get back to the truth in our country and your country and to the world. There is a truth. There is a right and wrong. Even though maybe we're told that there isn't, there is. And we need to have the courage to stand up for that.
Bunny Hugs and Mental Health is supported by Co-op. I've been a member of my local co-op, Sherwood Co-op, for about 20 years. If you live in Western Canada, especially the prairies, or spent any time here, you've probably fueled up or bought groceries at a co-op. You might even have a co-op number, or 2, or 3. You know if you know. But co-op is not just a gas bar or grocery store. Although co-op is those things too, it's a different kind of business. Co-op members are owners and success is shared with everyone. Your co-op doesn't benefit one person or one corporation. Your co-op was built for everyone. Your co-op was built for your community. Learn more about co-op and find a location near you at co-op.crs. One thing I've learned through my experience with mental health and addictions is you never know what you need to hear until you hear it. Make sure to rate and review on Apple and to tell as many people as you can about the podcast so others can hear something they need to hear from one of my guests. After all, this is a free mental health service, which is a rare thing, so why not share with as many people as you can? Do you think he believed his own bullshit?
I think he questioned it at first. And by the way, I don't mind questioning reality. I don't mind questioning events.
Critical thinking.
I question events. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like and I don't mind that. But when, like, he admitted he never went and looked at the official report that came out. He never looked at it. He didn't want to know the truth. He wanted to perpetrate this lie. And I think eventually, he did know, and he continued to lie. So he knew the truth. I mean, I don't think the guy's a complete idiot. You know, he's got to be pretty smart. He runs a multi-million-dollar platform. He talks about world events. He's even predicted some world events. The guy is smart. So he's not an idiot, and he knew that it happened, but he continued to perpetrate the lie because he got something from it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's been an emotional hour. This is one of my more emotional things I've done.
I know that you have interviewed John Romano.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And so the connection between John and I is that one of my ambassadors, who is a volunteer and in New York, by the way, she saw John's TikTok and she sent it to me. And she said, this is an interesting guy. So I saw all the controversy, like people calling for him not to, he shouldn't have a platform. You shouldn't be on here. You shouldn't even be speaking. You did reprehensible things. And so I watched a few of those, and then I'm like, I want to know if he is, the guy that he says he is. So I called him, and I reached out to him via email, and then I called him, and we have had many conversations since then. But it's very interesting to me that, I've talked to other school shooters too. And people don't understand why I would do that. But, why wouldn't we be talking to school shooters? Why wouldn't we be asking them, how did we fail you? And that's not a question that people are going to ask. But in essence, it's true, right? Because they were kids, and then somehow their needs weren't met to the point where they grow up and they want to kill themselves and then kill each other. And then, something happens. And so I want to ask, like, what could we have done to keep you from doing that? And so I talked to many others. I've had them on spotlight webinars and podcasts and book clubs. And so I reached out to John and asked him the same question. He was on my podcast, Choose Love, for 3 hours. We actually had to divide it into 3 parts because we talked for so long. And I've got a 2-parter with him because, but I mean, he's so open about his experience. And then, for me, he paid the price. He spent 17 years in prison. He did his time. And then he comes out, and what do you do after you're a school shooter and you're a felon? You work in a homeless shelter. And so he was working in a homeless shelter where he was a victim of a hate crime. And some guy tried to cut off his arms and kill him. I've seen him in person. He's got a big scar on his neck, and he's partially paralyzed in his hands. He can't use them. I mean, I had breakfast with him. He can't zip up his jacket, and, but he shows up at this guy's trial and he says, I forgive you. And he advocates for a lesser sentence because he knew that he was mentally ill. So he walks his walk. And I believe that people can make mistakes and be redeemed. I've made mistakes. Um, and I have needed forgiveness.
Me
Right.
too.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like these people are judging and condemning, and I'm like, wow, have you never made mistakes? And wow, look at the platform he has. If he were advocating for school shootings and making Nazi symbols and things like that, I would say you're right. He doesn't deserve a platform, but he's preaching peace and love, and he's trying to help kids. So yeah, he deserves a platform. And so we started talking, and he's actually a Choose Love ambassador, and I'm proud of that fact. And I hope that we're able to, and we haven't done this yet, but my goal is to go into schools and talk with high schoolers and have him share his story and his pain, and talk about how, talk about suicide, and how that's not that is, that's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And hear it from him. I can talk to kids too, and I love doing it, but gosh, hearing it from him would be amazing if we would have the courage to allow him to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, again, yeah. People are choosing resentment and pain and anger instead of just, like of all the people to listen to, it's someone that's gone through and done what he's done. Like, of all the people to learn a lesson from, it's someone that's extremely vulnerable of him to even talk about it. Like, how many school shooters are there that are, now free after alive and free from after spending time in prison, that are just like, I am laying low. And I get it too. Like, I get that too. It's like, I'm not putting myself out there. So yeah, he's pretty incredible dude.
He is. He is. And I've received a lot of judgment from talking with school shooters, but you have to understand that, they have the solution. And by the way, we're not doing a great job of it ourselves. So,
exactly.
Why do the same thing over and over and expect a different result? How about shift it up? How about have conversations with these people? I know something happens because in the world, as I'm working, I get these texts, and they'll say monster, evil, and the people are calling Alex Jones that too. And so I know something's happened, somewhere, but I don't feel that way. As I said to you before, they are not monstrous and evil. And I think we really have to get to the other side. And I hope that my relationship with John helps people see that. Because if I see you as a monster, this is kind of the way we get our hit of dopamine in our head is like, okay, you're the monster. And if you're the monster, I'm the good guy. So as soon as you make that good guy, bad guy, you get this hit of dopamine. It's like, what are we having for dinner? But if I acknowledge the fact that you are a human being in pain and you're acting out of that pain, it makes that a little more complicated for me to walk away. Then I have to do something because I can ease your pain. I can do something. It doesn't have to be directly with you. It has to be, though, a positive action I can take to be responsible for what's happening in our world and to help fix it. We are responsible for the world that our kids are growing up in, by the way. It's not really our government. Our government isn't doing anything about it. We're responsible. So my message to parents is like, get up and take responsibility in your community, in your world. You're responsible for leaving the world a better place for your kids. Do something to do that. Do it. Don't just sit behind your phone and go, oh, those people that won't vote for those laws. You know what I mean? That's not helping. That's further division. And that's out of fear. Anger is a mask for fear. We have either love or fear. So what are you acting out of? Because the outcomes look vastly different. And I want everybody to choose love in their thoughtful response. That's how we leave the world a better place.
I saw a meme that said anger is anxiety's bodyguard, and it's same thing. It's like anger is, because anxiety is basically fear. Yeah. Anyway,
fearful thoughts of the future that hasn't happened.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
our ideas. It's our beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah, our belief systems are, yeah, like you said, well, we already talked about it, but like it's harder to deprogram people than it is to program them. So it's, I mean, not that I'm giving up hope for our generation, but I'm hoping more people are doing like what you're saying and at least preparing the next generation for love.
You want to live your best life? You only have one life on earth and you have no idea when it ends. I know that better than anyone. So you want to live your best life? Then choose love in your thoughtful response. It will better your life, and then there will be a ripple effect from your actions. You're modeling for your kids every day anyway. They're watching you. You think you're having conversations they don't hear? They hear everything. They see everything. In everything that you do, you're modeling for your kids. Everything. And so remember that, and that helps you rise to the occasion and be the best version of yourself. But it's work every day, every day. But isn't it worth it to get to the end of your life? It's interesting that the top 5 regrets of the dying, which have been documented, are also the top 5 benefits of post-traumatic growth, of growing through your difficulty. But you have to learn how to do that. And that's what we teach in the Choose Love movement.
Beautiful. I did want to ask a little more because I found this part of our talk. So this is the part I almost cried, was when you were talking about Jess and him saving, was it 6 or 9 lives? 9.
9.
Are you in contact with those kids that are now, because they'd be 18, right? Yeah. And like,
17.
how did you find this out? Like, did they tell you? Did they tell their parents and then the parents tell you?
No, the police told us, from their testimony. And, wow. And no, I didn't have any contact. Jesse's dad did, but I didn't. And I hadn't heard from anybody until they did an article on all those kids that are just now, like at the beginning of this school year, going into their senior year of high school. And there was a great article, and one of the girls said, it's because of Jesse that we are alive. He told us to run, and that's why we ran. And so, like, I'm here because of him. And that was so affirming to me. Like, I've waited 11 years to hear someone from that classroom say that. And I was so appreciative. So now I have this newspaper cover picture of Jesse, and it says "Little Hero saved 6 lives." And that came out right after. And I always have to say, well, and that the paper got it wrong. It was 9 lives. But now I have her quote right next to that. And that just kind of closes the loop for me. I was so happy to have that validation.
That's so incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. He was actually given a commander-in-chief funeral for his bravery. So even before we knew, the police knew. And so we had an escort. So his casket was in a hearse, and I was in a black town car behind him. And so we're watching the hearse drive from the funeral home to the graveyard, which is, by the way, right around the corner from my house. So as we're driving, and everybody knew what was happening that day in Sandy Hook. So they see a hearse. They know who's in there. Like, they don't, maybe not Jesse, but they know it's a child. And so cars pulled over on the side of the road. People got out of the cars. They got down in the side of the road on their knees, praying, like in the middle of the road. And there was mounted police on horseback that were at his gravesite, that were in front of the funeral home, like all in a row. That he had a standing salute of police officers. All a motorcade was 4 motorcades were by his hearse, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. And then what they would do, like, there was the police following us, and they would go in front of the hearse and they would block off traffic in the intersections as we drove by, and people would stop and get out of their car. It's just so beautiful, so beautiful, so beautiful, the honor, and he deserved it. he was a little soldier. I actually, the first time I approached his casket, his open casket, I did so with a 3-star Marine Lieutenant General who was my dad's best friend from childhood. And I was afraid to see my son's dead body, as you can imagine. So he takes me by the hand, he leads me up, and there's this rail, where you can kneel at and look over into the casket. So I'm looking over into the casket, and I really don't talk about this. And this 3-star Marine Lieutenant General that's seen action, he's been in war. There's a story where he was, overnight out of ammunition, and the enemy was firing on him, and he was like the only person left. And so he looks over and he goes, I recognize these wounds. They're battlefield wounds. And it was pretty interesting because here again, my brain is so protective over me. Thank you, brain. I look and he looks perfect. He looks not perfect. Obviously he's dead, but I can't see the wounding. It's like my brain protected me from that. But he saw it and he talked about it, and it's battlefield wounds. That's what's happening to our kids in their first grade classroom. It's a war zone. And actually I went before they tore down the school, I went and walked Adam Lanza's footsteps. And I picked some flowers from the farm. I brought one of his little army figures, and I walked through his footsteps, and I saw where Jesse died. I put the flowers down and the little figurine. War zone, broken glass, shattered tile, like screwed up.
Do you think when you find his little figures out in the yard, that's him saying hello?
100%. Oh my gosh, Todd, my book is filled with messages. And that's part of the reason that, people wonder how I am so strong. A lot of it is my faith. And part of it is the fact that Jesse has given me like freaking mind-blowing signs. Like there's a part in my book where JT and I are going down to Florida, and we see Jesse and Jesus together forever right after I said a prayer. And Jesse is written with a backwards J, the way that Jesse wrote it. And nobody knew we were going. This is a long story that I'm not going to get into, but it's like I had just prayed that if he's lingering, I wanted him to be with Jesus. And it was hard for me because I didn't want his spirit to leave me. And there I see in the sky, and it's like, oh, you can be in 2 places at once. Thank you for that. Like, wow. I mean, like I have a picture of it. You don't have to believe me. And my 12-year-old son was sitting in the seat next to me, my biggest critic. So it was amazing.
and it blew his mind too a little bit?
Yeah. It changed us forever.
Okay. Wow. Is there anything we didn't discuss or anything I didn't ask that you wanted to make sure was on here?
Well, I'd like to make sure that everybody knows how to find me. ChooseLoveMovement.org.
I always forget that part.
No, that's okay. And I just want to also add that our programming is no cost. So if you're interested, please go on and register, and you can have access to everything that we have. If you're a teacher, we have programs for parents, we have programming for communities. If you're interested in what I have to say, check it out. Parents, make the call to your schools. Make sure that they are, you can ask about the hardening measures, which they most likely have taken, but make sure that they have a comprehensive programming that helps kids deal with difficulty, challenges, and roadblocks in their life. They need it. The grievance end of the pathway to violence. We need to address the fires, yes, but we also need to have a proactive solution in place, or we will never get ahead of these issues, and we'll continue trailing them with our efforts and always being a step behind.
Couldn't agree more. I have a segment. It's called That Some Bunny Special, and it's a segment where we chat about who cooperated in your mental health journey and filled your emotional tank. It's brought to you by Co-op. So this is especially important because it's a paid segment that I constantly forget to do. But
oh wait, you mean I'm getting paid? I'm just kidding.
You're getting paid with adornment and and love.
That's enough for me.
So yes, thank you, Co-op, for the segment. So who was there for you during, well, it doesn't even have to be during this event. It could be whenever in life that you just want to give a shout out to.
It's interesting that who the people that were there for me, who the people that did show up, and who the people that didn't show up. And that, it's kind of like in the beginning, a lot of people show up, but then, after a while, many fall off. And so you learn who your really good friends are. And that's a benefit of going through something difficult. For us, more than like the traditional psychiatry, we leaned into alternative methods like tapping, emotional freedom technique. That is a mix of ancient acupressure and modern psychology. And within 10 minutes, it's just little things that you tap on these pressure points that directly relate to the amygdala, which is where our fear center is. And literally, it has been shown to decrease cortisol levels, which is released during freeze, fight, or flight by 44% within 10 minutes. It is like amazing. It can reduce any kind of pain that you're in. And I love it for kids because it's something kids have. It's a tool they have to reduce pain. What else are they going to do? Unless they know emotional management skills, they might do something that's harmful to them. So we kind of leaned in on alternative things. I did writing. I wrote a book called Nurturing Healing Love. And so I did a lot of journaling. That most of that book is from journals that I had written down so I could remember things. And so, and I did a lot of, I did Reiki, which is energy healing. I did cranial sacral therapy. I did something called MNRI. That was one of the most powerful things I did, the Muscatova method. Because we were such a huge tragedy, everybody was coming in from all over the world with these unique techniques for handling trauma. And I tried them all. And so I have this little bevy of techniques that really worked for me. Havening is a big one. And I bet very few of you have heard of it, but it's been around for 20 years and it is incredible. It's just easy movements that you do that directly relate to the amygdala that can erase and overwrite memories. It's incredible. Please look at it. We have incorporated all of these into our programs for kids because these are techniques that help you calm down and lessen anxiety and fear and lessen pain. And it's so empowering to be able to do this. So those are the things that I really leaned into.
Nice. My wife is a body talk practitioner, which is, I don't know if you know what that is.
I don't, but I love learning new things.
Oh, well, it's very similar. It's like your body holds the pain of like trauma and stuff. And there's a lot of tapping and a lot of tapping, a lot of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, as soon as you said tapping, my ears perked up. I was like, I know that.
So powerful. And the tapping solution is a partner of ours. They have an incredible app. And we also have a program that uses our formula that was written directly by them that you can go online and access if you want to.
For free
at no cost. But
you can donate.
We're always taking donations. There's a cost to us, not to you.
By the way, I love how you say Todd. There's a little bit of an accent in there.
Oh, really?
Todd.
Todd.
I know it's not quite
How
Boston.
Do you say
it's just Todd. I don't know.
Todd.
I have a friend in Wisconsin that she also says Tad. Hers is much more obvious, but it's Tad.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I love the Wisconsin accent.
Thank you so much for this, Scarlett. Scarlett was one of I love all my guests, but it was just such a powerful conversation, and so much of what she said really stuck with me. It was the first one I ever did at like my time. It was like 7:30 in the morning, so I was like fresh out of bed, and I'm listening to her talk. It was just very incredible. So thank you so much, Scarlett. Please check out her podcast and check out Choose Love Movement. Again, that's all in the show notes. Thank you again for Co-op for sponsoring this episode. Thank you for Regina Plumbing and Heating for being a great company and a great service provider in Regina and surrounding area. And again, real quick, I love doing speaking engagements, so if you need a speaker, whether it's live or in person or virtual, if it's for a school, if it's for a work event, for whatever, please reach out to me, bunnyhugspodcast@gmail.com. That's it for this episode, so please, until next time, make your beds and take your meds. Bye.